Today we're going to take a look at a portable record player that I've imported from Japan. It's this model here, and it might look old, and it's designed to, because it's a modern day reimagining of a classic turntable. This is the GP-N3R, and it's supposed to look like the Columbia GP3, which is the model I've got on the screen behind me. Now that came out originally in Japan in 1980, and there seems to be a lot of nostalgia for it over there because a lot of people will have grown up as children and teenagers with this being their record player. It launched in 1980. It was discontinued in around about 1993. Of course, not too many people buying records at that point, but then it had a kind of ironic revival when artists such as Cornelius brought it out again. I think this was 1995 they brought them out, and that remained on the market in various different guises. I mean, this one from Cornelius, there was a version from the Michelle Gun Elephant, and there was other Japanese artists brought out their own version of this Columbia GP3 because this will have been a record player that they remember from their youth as well. So these special editions, I believe, remained on the market till around about 2005, and then it was discontinued again for the second time. But it seems like this is a turntable that you can't keep down. A lot of people do remember this, have some nostalgia for it over in Japan. And in fact, at one point, I did a video about this little Bluetooth speaker that was based on the GP3. So it's a turntable that seems to be in a lot of people's minds, which explains the relaunch now under another brand of a modern day version. I say modern day version because there were some issues with that older one. A lot of people suggested it was a classic, but I think classic in the sense of people remember it, not classic in the sense of it was any good. I thought this model here, I wasn't really very impressed with this. A couple of things I didn't like about it. Well, it had a very quiet speaker on it. So you think, all right, I'll just plug in some headphones, but it doesn't have a stereo output on this. It just had an earphone output. So it only came out on one side. It's just mono, the whole thing throughout. You can't get stereo out of this. Also, the cartridge on here, a ceramic cartridge, not my favourite things, as you might have seen from previous videos. I'd rather they used a proper moving magnet cartridge. But yeah, I understand it was a toy, but it gave the kind of performance of a toy as well. It runs on 6D cells. The speed was all right, pretty accurate. Wow and flutter, I think 0.9% when I tested it. So overall, yeah, a bit of a toy, but then they've decided to bring it back now and they've jazzed it up a bit. For one thing, stereo output. Ooh, yes, we're in the days of a stereo record player. Whatever next? But there's a couple of other improvements here. We've got a proper moving magnet cartridge on it from Audio-Technica as well. And I'm interested to see what the tracking force will be like on this one, because the previous version, I measured that at 8 grams tracking force. And that's because this turntable is designed to be used either horizontally or vertically. And so the 8 grams, of course, is to keep the stylus against the record. Well, I don't think you could probably do 8 grams on an Audio-Technica cartridge, but maybe you can. We'll find out. We'll do some measurements. So yeah, let's get it out of the box and let's find out how good this modern day reimagining of the Columbia GP3 that not many people in the West really have much nostalgia for is. That was a weird sentence. I didn't really structure that very well, did I? But anyway, let's get it out of the box and find out. Now, I bought this from Amazon Japan, and you might notice there's a couple of scuffs here and there on the box, and that's because rather than packing this inside another box, when it was sent over to me, they've just taped it up and they put an address label on it, which I thought was a little bit unusual, but it got here safe and sound. To give you an idea about the prices while I open it up, it cost 20,000 yen in Japan, and that converts across to 130 UK pounds or 180 US dollars. However, by the time it got delivered to the UK, it cost a little bit more, of course, because of the postage. So it was £155 delivered to the UK, which isn't all that cheap for a little sort of effectively a toy record player. And I bought a record player not too long ago for £89, which was a lot more professional than this. But there you go, that's the price it is, so that's what you pay. £155 delivered to the UK. That's today. These prices seem to vary quite a bit. They've gone up and down a bit since I bought mine. The positive was, though, it only took 4 days to get here from Japan, which I thought was amazing. I mean, I've had things that I've ordered in the UK take a lot longer than that. So the original one was Columbia Nippon, which you could argue was actually Denon. So you could say it was the original one was a Denon product, but it certainly didn't live up to the normal Denon quality standards. But yeah, there we go, that looks pretty nice. Now we've got an adapter on here. This will of course be 100 volts, I'm quite sure. I can't imagine it being multi-voltage, no. 100 volts, 50-60 hertz, 8 watts, 8 volts, 350 milliamp, centre positive. I've got various adapters I can use on that, but I'll probably just put that into one of my step-down transformers. Let's just have a look where the battery's going on this and see how many it actually uses, because the other one, as I say, used, what did I say, was it 6? Yeah, still the same, I think. Yeah, 6 D cells, so that hasn't changed. The quality of this feels a lot better than the Cornelius version that I had before. That was really cheap and nasty. There was like a creaky feel to it, but this one feels a lot better. Let's open it up. So you see inside the lid here, we've got a little sponge that holds down the arm at the back there. At the top here, we've got the on-off and volume, which is combined into this one control. It feels nice and smooth, that. And then the left one here is the pitch control, and there is a position in the middle, a detent, so you can feel when you got it in the centre. It does look a little bit off to the right there though, but I presume once it's in that position, it'll be playing at the perfect speed. Over on the right here, headphone output, and as mentioned, that is now stereo on this model. On the front here, single mono speaker, and down towards the bottom on this corner we've got the speed selector, which is between 45 and 33, and again that feels better quality than it did on that previous model, and the turntable's slightly dampened as well. The whole thing feels much better than it did before. We've got a couple of accessories here. This is the 45 RPM adapter, and when that's not in use it just stores at the back there, and then this is the record clamp. Now you wouldn't tend to use this normally. This is just to hold the record onto the platter if you're going to be playing the record in a vertical or an angle, some kind of position where it might fall off the centre spindle. So this just goes under the top of there and clamps the record down to the platter. Now if we just have a look at the front here, this is the Audio-Technica stylus and cartridge. At the moment it's got a protective cover on there. You'll need to look after that cover, because once you put this down into its storage position, it needs to have that on the bottom of there, but that just slides off like that. Okay, let's plug it in. I'll try it on batteries later on. Right, I'm going to start with a 45. This is from Richard Horton. Let's turn the volume all the way up and have a listen. Okay, observations so far. Well, the speaker doesn't go very loud again and doesn't have much bass, but a lot of these issues are down to the fact that you can't really have a very loud bassy speaker built into a record player because it would cause the needle to skip. So I can understand why that might be the case. The motor, you can hear it during the very quiet parts, so that's not great, but it's quieter than it was on the old record player, so I suppose that's a positive. Overall though, the sound quality wasn't that bad. Once you take away the issue that you don't have too much bass, it sounded like it was played at the right speed and it was nice and clear. So I think once we plug a headphone output into this, it's not going to sound bad at all. Okay, now let's try it with a 12-inch 33 1/3 disc. But before I put the record on, I've got to adjust the speed because it's hidden underneath the record. So with this in position, you'll have noticed before it didn't auto stop at the end of the disc. However, it does auto start once you lift the arm at the beginning because it rests on this small switch at the back. So we'll just pop this somewhere towards the end of the record and have a listen. Okay, now I've stopped the record there because that's a good position to play something back to you in stereo with a direct feed. Now in the manual it suggests that when you're connecting it up to some speakers you want to put the volume to about 1/3 of the way up. So I'll do that and I'll put this headphone output directly into the camera. Okay, so far so good. For what it is, I'm really quite happy with that sound quality, but let's now test the tracking force on this one. So we'll just stop this record and I'll get the scales out. Now, I ran this test a few times so I could be sure of the results. First without a record on the platter, and then with a 7-inch record, then with a 12-inch, and then I repeated the tests with a different set of scales. And they seem to come out with a figure of a maximum of around 4.7 grams. Now, the cartridge that's being used is an Audio-Technica ATN3600L, and the specs for this cartridge suggest a maximum tracking force of 4.5 grams, so it is a fraction over that maximum recommendation. Now, the arm is spring-loaded, there's no way to adjust the tracking, but 0.2 of a gram over isn't something that I'm really too concerned about. It won't damage a record. Remember that the previous GP3R tested, that had a ceramic cartridge with a tracking force of 8 grams, and that was something that I was a lot more worried about. And one thing I like about it is that the stylus on the bottom is protected from getting crushed by this little piece of plastic here. If I just drop this down, you can see the stylus is still missing the rest of the case. And that goes all the way up to the end there, and there's a stop at this end, so you can't actually drop your stylus down and ruin it. So that's a nice little feature. Right, let's do some speed tests. I've got the RPM app on my phone, so we'll start off at 33 1/3. Okay, so according to that, it's running 0.74% slow, which is fine, and the wow and flutter is 0.89%. Let's try it at 45. Okay, so at 45 RPM it's running at 0.7% slow and a wow and flutter of 0.66. All these scores are perfectly fine, in fact better than fine for something that you'd really treat as a bit of a toy. Now we'll move on to one of its party pieces, and that's the ability to play a record standing up. That clip that we saw earlier on will store in the top here, and I'll just try and get it out of there. These messages here, they're just warnings about turning it off and things when you're not using it. So we'll put that clip under the centre part here, and that will hold that in position. I'll take back what I said about that speaker. It's actually not that bad when it's facing you like this. It was pointing upwards before, and it didn't really seem to be projecting the sound out, but it's not bad at all, really, that. I think what I should do now, put some batteries in it and take it outside. It's a lovely sunny day, so it seems a shame not to take a portable record player and use it as a portable record player. Now, I've had a good look through the manual, but I can't find any information about the battery life. But based upon previous devices I've used, at a guess, I'd say you're looking at between 5 to 10 hours, and probably closer to the 5 than the 10. So this little battery-powered record player has turned into a very pleasant surprise. I really didn't think that going back to that original record player that was pretty poor and reimagining it would come up with something as good as this, but they've fixed the bits on it that needed fixing. And I'm perfectly happy playing my records on this, whether in the home or outside. I do think they missed a couple of tricks here though. The first one is that they could have done with putting RCA line level outputs on the back so you could plug it easily into your home stereo without using the headphone output. But I think the main one is that it could have done with having a Bluetooth transmitter on it. Yes, I know it's not the best for audio quality, but for something like this, a convenience factor for sending off to a Bluetooth speaker or to some wireless headphones. And then the final thing to say is that it's really quite expensive for what it is. But then again, if you want a battery-powered record player that you can play pretty much anywhere, I think this might be the best one on the market at the moment. But anyway, that's it for the moment. As always, thanks for watching.